Hello guys, let me first start with wishing you Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thanking you very much for supporting this channel and making this purchase, and I hope you're going to consider this in the future. This reading is going to consist of two parts. First part, important one though, even though it seems to be kind of like a little bit generic. Why is it important? They're general energies. So what does that mean? So let's say we want what we want, right? Let's say we want to buy tiles for the bathroom. So we know what we want to buy, we know our budget and everything else. So we kind of like know our little domain. But there is like a bigger picture. Who is the supplier? What can be done? So you have to work within that system. And this is like what this part is going to tell us. I also drew a rune just to give me basically some kind of like feel for it, and we are going to go in few other cards. These like really important decks. This is Osho Zen. He's like a famous I believe Japanese philosopher. We have karma cards and we have law of attraction. So for example, right, if you for example want to win lottery and you want to send those vibrations out and you have all the negative people around you, that's what's going to tell you. So literally all you would need to do is like stay away from that kind of like stuff, right? So the rune that we got was Vunya reversed. Vunya is a really good rune, even when it's reversed. So this is the rune of happy endings. We are coming into the basically cycle numerologically year number 12, which is basically cycle number 3 numerologically. I'm going to speak a little bit about that later, because oh my gosh, like year number basically 11 is tough. Year number 11 is challenging us on every single thing, and mostly on the things that actually we don't really want to be challenged. So that's something really to take in account. So this is talking about kind influence. This is talking about, hey, look, things are actually going to turn out well, right? It's encouraging rune, but when it's reversed, it kind of gives a little bit of kind of like caution that, for example, in terms of love relationship, maybe we are going to idolize someone. You know what? I say, heck, you know, why not? Usually we are so, I don't know if I want to say jaded. Like, I mean, there are like all kinds of people out there, right? And we are like, oh no, not again, right? So going on the other side, it's probably better, right? But this is also kind of like telling you, put it in perspective. Maybe somebody is looking too good to be true, and that's because he or she is too good to be true. So keep that in mind, because that person might be kind of like a little bit different from what they see. This is like entire year. They are not going to be able to put up the game for a year, especially if you see them on a regular basis. So I am really not worried about that. Also, another thing, if this is referring to business, then it's going to be danger of underhanded dealings, and even those who you consider friends might actually turn on you, and you might not count on them. So again, put that in account when you are making decisions that are including that other people. Now, what I would say with this particular rune, as it kind of like relates for the year number 3, that I would say make sure that at least you give yourself 3 days for kind of like really coming up with an answer. Sort of like, you know, not really mulling it over in these 3 days what to do. Sort of like when you have to reach a decision, put it on a back burner, 3 days on a back burner. When you come back in 3 days, then start deliberating what you want to do. So it's still very good, and this is that protection. Like P is for Vunya. I have my own names. P to me is for protection, and specifically when it comes here, because look, it's kind of like pointing backwards, right? So again, over idolizing means, hey, you know, I have all these friends, you know. I mean, I felt that way when I was moving, and then when the time came, like, I mean, everybody promised, and then one phone call after another, oh, I have a flu, I have this, I have this. So basically you see really who your real friends are. And this is exactly what it's saying. That date could be a surprise. So kind of like keep that in perspective. Already. So let's see what else we have. Let me just first get all the cards out. Oops, and we already have it. We have fighting. Oh, why do we have fighting thing? So let's, one on the floor. Wow, this is a lovely one. It's called Forgiveness. I love this one. And let's grab this one here. This is just a general energy, as it says something in, ooh, this is really lovely. You know, I'm so excited about this year. Let me zoom this in for you so you can actually have a better view of these guys, and I can kind of like give you a little bit more information. So fighting is probably a good kind of like omen, right? Fighting is like that proverbial knight of swords, which always kind of like can tend to be a little bit edgy, because look, he's like kind of like riveted himself in kind of like some kind of concoction that maybe he cannot even get out. So it almost like appears to me that somebody's like, I mean, so full of steam, the steam is coming out, it's even forming, as you can see here, some kind of like thing here on the side, right? So it is kind of like very important over here. What I really see here is like some kind of like edginess over here. What I really see here, and me being an air sign, I can really tell you how this works. Air sign can be the most easy breezy sign, but it can be tornado, it can be a hurricane, right? So what kind of like chance do you really want to take on this, right? So it is really important when you're dealing with air to kind of like understand that everything here depends on logic. Air is going to say, yeah, I love you, honey, but you are not showing up on time, you are not doing this, you're not doing this, and hence I am leaving you, right? Air is absolutely able to make that kind of stuff. So fire probably would kind of say, okay, well, let's see, let's come up with an action plan how to do that, right? Where, you know, Pentacles would go, okay, so what can you do for me? Like, let's make it more transactional kind of a thing, right? And kind of like water would go, okay, like, I mean, I really feel for you. I'm still going to kind of go and continue with this, right? So it is kind of like talking about an explosive temper and maybe even smoldering rage. And to me, whenever I see people like that, I always know there is pain. And these are strong people. And if you're listening to this, like when you see people who are maybe exploding, you want to do something and you find this like immovable, insurmountable obstacle, these people are conveying some kind of like pain. So when are people getting angry? When their needs are not met. When are people in pain? When their needs are not met. But it's actually even worse when they really feel they will never be met. With anger, like, at least, actually, believe it or not, it's better, because people feel, well, you know, if I do this, like, things are going to be met. So I know it's really hard when you have like something really harsh and edgy coming at you, but maybe you're going to remember my words. The person that you see in front of you raging and having those white knuckles and having all huffing and puffing and maybe being threatening, actually is just like the pussycat in the corner who wants to scratch everything because they're really hurting. So this is why they are showing this kind of like armor over here, because they're covering their wounds with armor. And actually, even though this is preventing, helping them not to get more wounds, it's also preventing them of being healed. So, you know, these people who lash at others, they just like simply prevent themselves of getting love and nourishment they need. If this is like us and getting that kind of stuff, we actually need to realize when we get angry, well, wait a minute, what is it that I have to kind of like let this like steam out? Because hey, love is like out there. Love is like literally something we need to kind of open our arms and get it. And if this is like you, that you find yourself in the situation, just kind of like give yourself a big hug. Ask your friends to give you a hug. It has a very healing thing. Also, another thing that I really tried and that really works, and I tell to my clients, take ballroom dance classes, take salsa lessons, because holding another human and in something that is enjoyable is going to transfer so much good energy. So I really think, given that this is coming for the ambience and environment we are going to find ourselves in it, that this is really talking about that this year is going to be one of the struggle. It's going to be where ambitions will be pushed forward. Many people, especially after year number 11, which is 2, where it's very spiritual, where it's like, really, do I really want to be that kind of person? And here is like, I'm moving forward. So up to this point was like all kind of like those strategizing, but here it is kind of moving forward. So when people move forward, some people try to negotiate and find a deal with others. These are people who are more people oriented. other people try to steamroll through whole thing and kind of like get what they want, right? So you need to understand yourself. So because this is kind of like the general overview, you have to figure out if you really want to be part of something like that. Do you really want something at any cost, or you simply don't want something at every cost, right? Because look what you have over here. You have forgiveness from this other deck, and like to me this is like one of those, the loveliest cards. This is the card that, you know, if you can see, we have like these different chakras over here. So we are already here in this high purple chakra. So your number 11 was all the way here, so we are getting more grounded. So this is again about judging and forgiveness. So even though it could be them being mad, being rude, being crude, I can see cussing and swearing and telling people off and a finger, I can see here a whole bunch of things. How you react to it, it's what your challenge is going to be. Are you going to just like simply engage in their pain and kind of like react back with anger? Or are you going to kind of like neglect yourself and just going to help themselves? You see how many challenges you will actually have there. But look, solution is being offered over here, forgiveness. It's, you know, it's not really about forgiving others in this situation. What I really think that forgiveness has to apply to is that we need to forgive ourselves for having judged others, because judging others always generates kind of like bad brownie points. There's like somebody here maybe who, you know, these people, they're angry with entire world, and my dad is just like it. I get this very, very much. Like whenever everything is perfect, they're still going to find something. We all have those kind of like negative, you know, Sandy, kind of like negative Nancy, kind of like a people around us. So, and of course, maybe sometimes we just like treat these people with a label on it, right? They say if you really want to kind of go higher, not only spiritually, but in your life, you shouldn't kind of like have things with labels. So cat shouldn't have C-A-T kind of like spelled on it. It's a being that kind of is engaging. You see the difference. It's like reading the energy versus reading the label. So here is like basically simply calling, look, you know, understand what is below and behind that armor, that this person is probably, you know, resenting things. And here, like, I mean, we need to kind of like focus on basically intention. What do they really want? And this kind of, imagine if you manage to kind of develop such thick skin that these things are not coming to you, how wonderful would that be? That's why I see this card, but we still didn't get there, right? This also tells me that it may be a time of family healing. I feel that anybody who have hurt you, who have done something, and you know, families have their own histories, especially if there is money involved, or you know, each family has quote unquote their own way. You know, if you watch Game of Thrones, Lancaster always pays his debts, kind of a thing. Story that we see is kind of like over present, but sometimes this is also very limiting, just like this armor. So this also can actually be part of those dynamics. Now, why am I going in such a long intro to tell you this? This is because you guys are on a trajectory of that year number 3, of wishes being fulfilled, of holding on to past dreams. Over the last 2 years, you have been meticulously changing. You have been setting a new path. You have been setting a new direction. You have been also doing lots of bad things, but now you need to forgive yourself. Look, there is like this hypo, and there is like this kind of like baby over here, right? And the story behind here goes, right, that you know, there was like this Rhonda, I think, Rhino, and kind of like she kind of like has a mother. Her mother has like a drinking problem, but she kind of like really wants to become a family pet. And so one day, kind of like she hears, I think, gunfire or something like that, and all the rhinos scatter, and all of a sudden there is like this small human child that is kind of like caught up in the chaos, right? So Rhonda says, come here. She picks him up and runs to safety. So humans now discover this kind of like pair curled up asleep under a tree, and then what they do, they shoot Rhonda with a sleeping dart. So when she awakens, she is in a garden with the little boy and his family. So this is now becoming Rhonda's new family. So as you can see how things can really change. From some aggression and some kind of like struggle and white knuckles, things can actually quite work out quite well. And then we are getting this Temperance card. Well, Temperance in the other decks is really shown as an angel who is able to mix this bad and good, because it almost looks like two opposite sides of the equation, right? This is like all the way in the negative, this is all the way in the positive. This is like pretty much what we go to church for, what we pray for, what we hope for. This is like when we are at our best. So I'm not really surprised that actually we got this, like in saying, okay, so there is like this kind of like measurement that needs to happen, and there is like a mix. No, I'm not saying to be in the middle. I'm just like saying that you need to kind of like take every single bolt down from every single thing that you feel guarded, for every single thing that you feel you have made your decision, you have made your verdict over something, because this is also a card of reflection. So if you're going up, and I see many people are going in different direction, because this is a year of advancement, this is a year where we're actually putting things in practice. So if in 2018 you were planning to renovate the house, maybe you're collecting kind of like the ideas, maybe you were kind of getting your estimates, in 2019 you're going to put it in place. If in 2018, like you were trying to, let's say, get married and find a proper partner, and maybe you were running in a whole bunch of people and feeling maybe even a little bit disillusioned and now getting more guarded. No, it's actually not the time to get more guarded and put more bolts in it. It's like saying, look, I'm still learning what works and what doesn't work. So that's why this reflection is very important. You're looking back and saying, okay, this did come back to me and I did like it. This came back to me and I didn't like it. So you kind of like figure out, this I don't want to have anymore, and this, you know, I do want to have way more to have of this. But also you're saying, I can tolerate this and I cannot tolerate that. So you're kind of like creating that proverbial line in sand, which is like a little bit different. So this kind of like boundaries are set up different. Only thing, because we are having here like this naked woman instead of the angel and the water. Like the nakedness is always talking about being authentic and being true to yourself. And like the truth, some people say, oh, just say it the way it is. I like to be honest, but I cannot say, well, he's going to dump you, for example, right? The truth also always, and that's where the difference in between good human and bad human kind of comes to play, is like how you render it. Because here it's talking about the truth mixed with kindness is basically something that kind of like dissolves everything negative coming your way, right? So just like think about Vunya reversed, as I told you, 3 days. So when somebody comes at us, we react back. There is like this bad blood, right? And we say things that maybe we didn't want to say. 3 days delay, the steam is out, right? You wake up in a new garden and you realize, oh wow, you know, this person actually really wants this. So how do I meet his or her needs without sacrificing mine? Because at this stage the rational mind kicks in, and remember, this is all about logic. So if you can find a way to present that in a logical way, most likely you're going to be successful. Okay guys, so let me tell you a little bit about this year number 3, because that's also very important. So year number 3, we were technically in the year number 2, but for some of us was year number 11. So what's the difference? 1 and 1 is 2. And so why it was for somebody 11 and for some other 2. Not everybody can all the time be at the highest spiritual level. So we just like resort down to what we can do. So number 2 is about harmonizing. Number 2 is like, how can we actually improve and get along better and work better, right? But number 11 is like taking that to the much higher level, sort of like thinking about mankind. And funny enough, even though it is about good, when is good needed? Good is needed to erase the bad. So lots of bad things happen in year number 11. Lots of things that maybe we need to kind of really work for. So after a year in which other people's needs kind of eclipsed our own needs, now it is our turn. The 3 year is like really simple and more casual, this like 12-month cycle. And what is really, really important, and advise making this big sign and put it on your fridge, what do I want? Right? You're going to see that all the things that maybe you didn't consciously plan, but they're kind of coming up, are actually really kind of like coming back. So your own long-term happiness and fulfillment are really the central issues here. And the 3 year cycle gives you that opportunity to discover and then create what you believe will actually make you happy. Remember Rune? So what you want is actually attainable, regardless of what appears to be standing in your way. Are challenges going to happen? Do you have a clear road? Nope. No, you don't. But as I told you, like, spend a few days to kind of think through it. Make sure that you have a backup plan, because people will surprise you with how unreliable they are. So direction of your happiness will be uncovered, and you will first have to detect and, as I said, heal the sources of your unhappiness, which you will find have as much to do with what is taking place in the world, as I told you, this is general, as it does also with your own personal situation, because they're like these two puzzles that have to fit together. So it's going to be about direction we take with personal situations, relationships, and also memories. You will really have to feel what you're feeling, and you will need to express those emotions in a way that is really natural for you. We all have different expressions. Yes, some signs are more aloof, some are like just like too kind of like, you know, opening their kind of like water taps too much and cry easily. But this is not to measure that just because you cry over something that you feel deeper or more. Sometimes people cannot cry because they would just like lose it. Just keep in mind, when you see this person like huffing and puffing, angry, that person is like the one who just cannot allow themselves to do that, because they will fall apart. This is how fragile they really, really are. Remember, happiness is a feeling, it's an emotion, and that only comes from inside. And there will be at least one opportunity this year to feel joy as you have never felt it before. Remember, joy. Remember, what do I want? What kind of joy do I want? So as this 3 year kind of progresses, you are going to find yourself, and this is good, in some kind of spotlight. And you will certainly need to express your alternating fears of failure and success. Yes. If you feel, oh my gosh, I'm not going to succeed, that means you're hesitating. Like for the last 2 years, you have been going through that, thinking through it. So why don't you make these first steps? It's going to be some kind of like release. It's going to be making you feel more comfortable, or who you are, what you are, and where are you now. It's going to be that realistic perspective. Remember the woman under this waterfall. It's kind of like that cleanse. I see myself now. I see myself clearly, right? So this completely a new spectrum of options will open up for you. So it's going to be really important that you're going to see now that you're creating something because you have already created in the past. It was in the back of your head. It was something you noticed, and now the puzzles are coming together, and you are becoming that creative springboard from which you build your future. And you might need to take a few courageous leaps in the dark, as I said. So if you're hesitating to make a first step, and if you're thinking, no, I don't ever succeed, I don't do that, well, no, this time you need to take the step forward, because that is going to completely open this new door. Because fear is really there to teach us. That's what needs to be healed, right? So that's kind of like what is guiding us on that path to develop courage and to know that you're far more capable than you ever allowed yourself to believe. And this is that level of self-acceptance. I am this way. I'm just this way. I'm not trying to be Cindy Crawford. I'm not trying to be Brad Pitt. I'm this way, but guess what? I'm really unique. My kindness, my approach with other people, whatever kind of like works for you, is like something very unique, very authentic for you. So that's going to be part of that self-acceptance. And all of a sudden your leaves will turn to bounds. And this year could turn out to be your most fulfilling year ever. So just remember that courage is not the absence of fear. Just because you're courageous doesn't mean you clear all that fear. So if you're not afraid also, then courage has nothing to do with that. So what courage really is the acceptance of fear and saying, I'm going to deal with this. I'm going to get through it, whatever is causing it. So it could also be like, some kind of like financial state that you have to go through it. You're wondering how can you put things together. So it's kind of like moving it forward. That's kind of like really, really going to help. So this is kind of like that part telling you that nothing is going to be really rosy. But this year, among many, many years, is one of the best years. So in addition to courage that is going to be kind of like exercised, it's also going to be a year full of lightness and happiness and innocence and peace and truth and friendship, creativity, communication, dealing with younger people or feeling youthful ourselves. We are going to be more beautiful, and of course that's going to start kind of like shifting our personality into something that is lighter and more optimistic, more loving, and it's going to be way more laughter than we had in a while. Of course, keep in mind, in order to get there, that sometimes that kind of like the opposite can come through it. So also, on the outside, we might see people who will try to put us in depression and sorrow and guilt, gossip, lies, enemies, ugliness. Am I talking about politicians? I guess I must be. As you can see, the reason why year number 3 is giving us all this happiness and lightness, it's simply to be the antidote to all of these kind of like other things. So if you experience this kind of like pessimistic or, rejection or coldness, then these kind of like things have their purpose. Those adverse elements often enter our lives in the year number 3 to show us that we maybe equate happiness with really superficial and shallow things. And this year, because the number 3 is represented in tarot with Empress, and it's very female, it's very feminine energy. It is kind of like being quiet strength, being that light and light beam to the others. So just think about the perfect woman. So of course she's going to be challenged with those rude males or rude partners or partners who just like really want to conquer her. So yeah, she can engage back and just become just like one of them, or she can just like have this like kindness and lightness about her and just say, nope, I'm going to be courageous enough to say no to you. Maybe you're not my only choice, and if you are, I don't want you, kind of a thing. So year number 3 is very, very important as far as relationship. It's not asking you just to go and hook up with somebody. Nope, it's not going to work that way at all. So it actually is going to ask and demand independence. You will want to be independent. It's kind of contradiction. You're going to be actually more successful in a relationship by being independent than actually just trying to find somebody just because it's easier in the two. This is going to be a really, really good fit, because it's going to be an opportunity to love deeply without constantly worrying about what others think. And the more you have the higher self-esteem, the more you approve of yourself and do what you want to do, the more others will accept you as you are, because they'll be witnessing that transformation, and this like pure beauty is going to come through no matter how you look, because you're going to have that authentic confidence. So when this inner beauty is expressed outwardly, it's really, really hard to resist. And we all know people like that who might not even be beautiful on the surface, but their charisma is like so strong. They just like kind of have to put this kind of like smile on their face and they become irresistible. And usually we see that through smile quite a bit of the times. So anybody who will try to kind of like keep up appearances or having any kind of like displays of false confidence or being bullied, that's not going to work. If you want to pretend that you're happy or fearless, that's not going to work. Remember, it's going back to what do I want, and it's going to make you push you through. You need to get there by getting along with the other people, by being kind, by being nice. And that of course means kind of like wiggling through many different people who might still not get this memo. So friends will also play an important role in this year, so make sure that you actually give yourself more time for social interaction, and that's where the independence with relationship is going to kind of come to play, because you will kind of like try to please other people, but you also have to realize that you are important, right? So you shouldn't kind of like spread yourself too thin if you're neglecting yourself. You kind of have to put yourself first and then kind of like give time to everybody, because if you don't pay attention to your friends, then you're going to lose them, because this year is going to be year of abundance. Just like think about it, it's going to be Christmas all year long. This is how it's going to feel. So how would you feel that very, very good friends like you on Christmas? So keep in mind that you're really thinking about everybody, because it's going to be very, very important for kind of like what kind of brownie points you do that in the future. Because you know, courageous is not only being when, you know, when there is a fear or there is a struggle, but what when you really can do it, when there's easy to do it, and then you don't do it out of laziness, or you just become, you know, arrogant because you feel like you're better than anybody else. Keep that in mind, keep that in perspective, because also individuality is going to be very important. You'll be kind of like creating some kind of like new format of who you are. You can kind of like remove these like bad parts or smoothen them, and kind of like understand that the happiness, this new happiness that you're generating, is also partially because you are actually creating this new optimism. And anybody who is going to have a blatant self-interest is just simply going to be kind of like pushed on the sidelines, and they'll be probably waiting on the next cycle, which is going to come in 9 years, to try it again, right? So also, this is a very creative year. It's a year of communication, expression. So you might want to read, or you might want to write a book, but it's also going to be looking at the images and sound and humor and movies. It's going to be really important. It's almost going to be a big stage, right, this year. So kind of like expression in many different elements. Also, as I said, with the rune Vunya reverse, make sure you check the facts for yourself. It's very often in the 3-year that we kind of like really succumb easily to, what do you call it, hearsay, I believe, or somebody who is very loud. You know, just because you're very loud doesn't mean you're right. So that's why I'm saying give it a delay of 3 days. Somebody says I'm authority, question even that, because the truth is likely to be buried beneath layers of deception or misconception, right? So try to keep an open mind. Also, this year could be a year of appearances. So meaning what appears to be the case must be seen for what it is deep down, not just like what it appears to be, right? Just because you have flowers and something looks really nice on the top doesn't mean there's like something really muddy and horrible on the bottom. So just make sure that you correctly understand everything, that you clarify, and that you kind of like are on the same page. And even at that, kind of like still, if you feel that you're betrayed or somebody's like negative, you just like will realize this is just part of the course. Maybe you shouldn't react. Maybe this person is in pain. Maybe this person feels you're going ahead and they are not, and even though it's not your fault, they are being reactive. And take this in account before you actually kind of like deal with other people. Keep in mind that the better person you are, the better everybody around you will become, because it's almost contagious, and this is how good it's going to be. And you're going to really address that feel, as I said, that armor is not going to last. It's going to fall apart. Like, I mean, we have to heal all the wounds. We kind of are generating completely this new body. Remember the woman under the waterfall. We are washing it over. We are healing. Just think about for a moment, God is giving you everything new. New health, new body, new possibility, new start. And even though we are going to have share of our problems this year, we are perfectly able to deal with them. The Empress is the perfect woman. She addresses things wisely, and she's kind of like moving it forward with this gentle touch, this loving and kindness and children and pets and creativity and anything that we can give birth to, such as like, I mean, new things, a new personality, new perspective, is going to be really, really important. So the year of optimism, which is very positive, I would just like, I mean, welcome you to enjoy your trip on the tree path, because it's going to be interesting and a creative year to live in. So let's start with the individual signs from this point on. Hello Scorpio, thank you very much for your order. It is greatly appreciated. Thanks for supporting this channel, and hopefully you enjoy it. So let me start shuffling the cards and see what is in the store for you in 2019. Alright Scorpio, so let's start. The first part is basically reading the quarters. We are going to check first 3 months, second 3 months, third 3 months, and fourth 3 months in 2019. Then when I'm done with this, we are going to actually go and check the different houses, so sort of merging tarot with astrology, and see how different aspects of your life will be affected. And lastly, we are going to put this in some kind of like timeline perspective with Lenormand. So let's start with this first part. In this first part, I'm generally, first of all, looking for number 3, given that I have just given you this big intro. It's a lucky year, it's a creative year, and you even have the card of Empress over here. You have share the love, and I thought I saw another 3. Oh, there it is, take the lead. So I see here emergence in the second part of the year that is clearly going to take on that feeling of everything that is happening around is going to be actually really integrating with you as well. So let's start from the very beginning. The very first card that you have here is Milky Way. Now, it is kind of like really strange, because I think in the other deck I have the same card that is called Galaxy. So let's just give you a recap. The Milky Way is said to be one of billions of galaxies in the universe that we really know, that let's say that we can observe. So we really don't know the number. This one here contains between 200 and 400 billions stars. So it is the one that is the closest to the sun, and the oldest star in a galaxy is about 13 billion years old. So just imagine the vastness of the formation and everything that had to basically happen, because if you really put it in the perspective, then Earth is only 4.5 billions basically young compared to that. So distances in space are measured in light years. So this one is considered to be 100,000 or something like that light years in diameter. So this is like a really vastness we are talking about. What is really interesting about this picture is that we are seeing this like few little, you would probably tend to think it's planet, but nope. Each of these kind of like little balls are like other galaxies within. So when we see a card like this, it's kind of overwhelming where to look, and imagine like all these little worries and all these little problems that you have. How important is this in such a big picture, where like this little dot is representing not only our planet but our entire galaxy, right? So it's really telling me that maybe here you are at your wit's end, that you are having some kind of like issues with things that are going on. You probably will be very impatient over certain things, because look, I'm seeing here clarity of belief, and then this card here showing up as well. It almost looks like something from the first quarter might repeat in the last quarter. So it's going to be very important to see. Oh, you have another 3 over here, 3 of fire. So same thing here, like we're having this repeating as well. It is kind of like, however, feeling to me that you have maybe lost your perspective, and it is really time right now to pull in and sort of like be a little bit detached. But that detachment doesn't mean that you don't longer care. It's kind of like simply indicates that you know, you'll be looking at things from a different point of view. And it is kind of like a time for you to look at things that are not clouded by any emotions. So it's kind of like non-judgmental situation, or not even kind of like being attaching yourself to the outcome, right? So remember, like, I mean, there is like this what do you call it, E equals mc square theory of relativity, which basically talks about this, like, I mean, basically speed and the energy that is created, right? So it is really important here that there is like this so-called witness, because we still are trying to figure out how things work. So in this particular case, like, that witness is that internal aspect of yourself, and it's like something that we observe. We are like a little computer. We kind of like keep having a notes what is like immediate and what is on periphery of who we are. And so it is like really asking you to kind of observe through those lenses of awareness and examine different aspects of your life, and even of your experience, physical, emotional, mental. Don't deny yourself anything. By doing that, you're going to be able to understand much bigger perspective than is like really typically justified by ego, which ego is always like, how do I get served and what do I really want to see? Instead, this is really calling for you to have an open mind, because look at this, these two cards, patience and clarity of belief, is like something that you really need to accomplish. It is again kind of pulling it in. He's keeping one basically hand on his heart, another one he's releasing this butterfly. Maybe you don't want to release something, maybe you don't want to release somebody. We have a very similar motive if you really look in both of these things. We have this lily, it's like again the freedom, it's again merging of the opposites of some kind. The Three of Fire is really saying, well, in which direction are you going to sail? Who really are your friends? Who are your enemies? Where are you going? You might feel the playfulness also came reversed. So basically 3 reversed, 1 up. One that is up is kind of like making you focus, and I have to say she does look like a kitty cat here, so it's kind of a cool thing. There is like this nautilus, and it is kind of like, where are you going, in which direction are you going? 3 of Fire is that ability to kind of exercise that creative force. So I really feel that there is like something that is suppressing you for one reason or the other. You know what that song goes, tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. I'm really wondering if there is a situation that you're not facing, because facing it will be hard, or it will be too stressful or too traumatic for you to do that. It is, clarity is not there. Clarity needs to be reached. Patience, very much like in perspective, is talking about taking 2 different aspects and not taking sides. Simply kind of go through this process and observing it and seeing where you get. And this entire quarter might be, where do I really want to go? How do I want to go there? You're not going to be really jumping at it, jumping of joy, I gotta do that. It's kind of having that very active component. Instead, you're going to be going like really slow. It might be really pulling things in, maybe really seeing how do you fit, how do you fit into this big universe. And this is not to minimize you, quite the opposite. It is making you understand that you do matter, you need to contribute something. So there's like something that is really calling for your attention over here. Another thing that I have noticed over here in your reading is also that you have 2s, you have 1s, and you have another 2 over here, 2, 2, and 2, and this one is a 2, and then you have 5s. So what does that mean? 2s are always about indecision. 2s are always, well, what do I do? How do I go about that? It's always like, you know, the grass is greener in the neighbor's garden, where, you know, it could be a good thing that we are getting 2 beautiful choices, and because they're like both really good, that we really don't know what to do. because maybe sometimes it's really talking about juggling a whole bunch of things. Like in this card, look, it's called Find Balance. What is it? Is this like passage of time? Do you really want to enjoy the beauty? Do you really want to enjoy emotions like motherhood, education, commitments? What is important? It's kind of like, it feels that in the second quarter you're going to be all over the place, but fret not. I don't know how many of you know that Scorpio is actually represented in many different religious and spiritual teachings with different animals. It's not only Scorpion. Scorpion always represents the lowest possible being of what your possibilities are. You have the next one, which is fish, and then also you have eagle, and you have the highest one, phoenix. If those cards show up, I'm going to point this out to you. And here we have eagle. I really think this is you. Like eagle would show up where you see this big perspective, where you kind of like are reaching yourself above and you're able to see this like lay of the land. In this particular picture, look at that. We are seeing the man and the eagle making eye contact. And there is like total connection. There is like not only, gosh, I see ya, I watch you. It is like that connection, eye and spirit. So it looks like that man here just like finished some kind of like ceremonial calling to basically his eagle spirit animal over here, and now there is like this sort of like in sync of the spirit happening. So it's called communion. So this is really telling me that, you know, there's like going to be some kind of heartfelt communion or expression with plant or animal or human or anything else over here. Like it's going to be almost like a presence that you're in somebody else's body, or that somebody is in your body. It's going to be just a difference of form over here. And this is like where what they call it transient experiences, where you're really going and you're able to see this other stage. Some people say, oh, you complete me, which is completely the opposite of this. Completely you complete me means you are insufficient, means that you still have to build yourself as a person. You are fully complete here, but you are actually expanding on a much higher level. There is like something that is happening that you might see so many different things in people, and you might say, huh, I would really like to be like this, and oh, I wish I have that. You're also going to see the other side. You're going to see, well, you know, I don't really want certain things over here. So the second quarter, so we are talking April, May, and June, you're going to be spending lots of time in the nature, and you'll be spending lots of time talking and even debating with people. So try to go through this period with being as relaxed as you can possibly be, and keep sort of like your attention on this much higher picture. You might have this maybe being a spirit animal. You might have this being something else, like, I mean, fire dragons showing up, and all of a sudden, instead of just buzzing by, they're going to just like really look at you, and you're not going to say, oh, fire dragon. And the moment when you put the label, we forget what is really happening in a moment. Just go, oh, what's happening? And then all of a sudden you're going to see the possibilities will be opening up. Now, you have another knight over here. Both of these knights were reversed. One is a fire knight, one is a water knight, right? So this is again talking about you need to expand. Look, I have been, you know, I have been blind, but now I can see. That is like basically the message of the second quarter, because the understanding is that you are not captive. That look at these bars. These bars are actually dissipating the higher you go, and this bird needs to find its way. So who is this bird? Is this you? Interestingly enough, this card here is also featuring a whole bunch of doves as well. So Five of Air always talks about needing to be better, but not necessarily in a good way. Sometimes it's just like a need to conquer. You kind of like apply even force or even bullying, or not you but somebody, right? Because it is really important that the other person kind of like puts their swords down, but not in a way kind of like let's all drop it. It's just like I show you I'm the winner, in a very kind of like Viking old-fashioned way. So Five of Swords being here, And then you also have this over here. It's really telling me that maybe it's going to be a period also where you'll be going through some kind of like emotional manipulation and reaching out, understanding that everybody around you can actually feed you with energy, that you can get the energy to use it, because you might really feel weak in this period of time. You might feel that you need to debate something, where the truth is, you know, that maybe you're not able to kind of like put a finger on something. Because look, also the hope card came reversed, and the hope card is like so amazing. I don't know if you can see it. Look what's happening here. In the midst of this card, there is like this new life form forming. You see, now this perspective is starting to make sense. I really feel that this is asking you to open up and look at this. Like, we see this light here, we see this light here, and we see this like enormous light here. But in this light, something is walking through. I think it is you, my dear Scorpio. You need to allow yourself. You guys, such an intuitive sign. You need to allow yourself to get there. There's like something that I see here really preventing you, and it could be that there is some issue that is tricky. Could be that you feel that somebody is rubbing you the wrong way, that somebody lied to you. Maybe you're going to feel, well, you know, I want to be diplomatic, I'm just going to kind of like give this white lie, and then that explodes in your face. So you kind of like going, okay, like if I said to you the truth, things would kind of like be bad for me, and now I'm kind of like trying to cover up with white lies. They're exploding in my face. What can I do, kind of a thing, right? Because I can totally see that you're trying to kind of like figure out how to actually move forward in a direction. Maybe, you know, people expect you to jump when they want you to jump. People expect you to sit down when they want you to sit down. The energy seems to be flowing in all directions, because look, again, also we have this like big circle. Like the circular things is like just something uncanny that I'm seeing in your reading. And then these two things probably are made for a reason. I guess there is going to be a need for you to kind of like absorb who you are. I really like seeing this emergence over here. Whenever I see emergence of something else, I really feel that maybe this means baking a new you. So you have to ask yourself, what is new you? Many people, when I ask them this in my coaching, they tell me, well, they have the list. Right, so yeah, here's the list, 1 2 3 4 5. The point here is that it would be maybe better, instead of like going down that list, to kind of like just imagine emotion. We have like just few basic emotions: hate, love, greed, anger, right? So why not just to say, well, I would just want to be happier, I want to be more loving. But people and that's kind of selfish, I want to be loved. Like, this is like pretty much the mantra that majority of us is just like yelling, I want to be loved. So what we are saying to karma, we are saying, well, I don't have it in me, I have to reach it on the outside. And this is the very source of all unhappiness. So when you realize that the stuff is inside of you, the things are going to start turning around, because you'll be able to get out of this conundrum, I would say, where almost like there is like some kind of trap that is really happening over here. In the third quarter, the relief is coming. It looks like third quarter is going to be paramount to many signs. So you have breath. So like this is like really looking like we are going from the meadow to the forest. And I can speak about this card forever, because I absolutely love forest. I always lived next to the forest and next to really big trees. Like this is like kind of like the talking about this exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide, right? And basically trees are breathing out the oxygen, we breathe it in. So we breathe out carbon monoxide, they breathe it in. So they benefit both ways, we benefit both ways. It's kind of like win-win. It's the opposite of this card, right? Because this card is like win, lose, lose. So two people lose, one person wins, and the person who wins thinks that they won, where the people who lost never want to deal with this person again. This is basically where you're realizing this is a much better ground, this is much better thing to have it, right? This is really when you reach the situation, is like when we feel gratitude toward what we have. Even what we have is like not like amazingly rich and the best and the top. Like we always kind of like feel that we have to climb the hierarchy. Remember the old times when we really gave our thanks for food that we have on the table? Remember the old times when we were happy to get jammies for Christmas, not like an iPhone? Like, this is really telling me like you are getting there, and you really need to start that connection. So this communion is like, hey, the spiritual connection, this is like physical connection. You need to pay attention to your breathing, and maybe it's a little bit too shallow, and it's kind of like some event and some circumstances that are giving you this shallow breath. It usually happens when you start experiencing anxiety and when your fight or flight activates, right? It's usually when our needs are not met. In the third quarter, some issues that you had over here and that you have been dealing with, such as like, who am I? What am I doing? Am I doing the right thing? Who are the people for me? Like, you'll have possibly two different people around you, maybe one fire sign, one water sign, but it doesn't have to mean like it's going to be question, who do I want to date? Do I want to go about? It looks like that you have quite a bit of controlling energy around you, that everybody wants a piece of you, sort of a thing. The water definitely doesn't look right, and any situation where you feel it's overwhelming. I'm not saying that if you're dating water sign, you shouldn't go for them. No, that's not what I meant when I said water is not right. It's maybe too much water. Like, too much water means that they're like tears, and they're, you know, ultimatums. They're like demands for power over here that I see. Some people demand power, like, as a matter of fact, you know, I need this, you'll do that to me. It is called bullying. And other people will use this passive-aggressive approach where they're going to, like, shed tears and blame on you, try to guilt you into things. You haven't done that. And that's what I mean here with too much water, because that kind of like situation could be occurring over here. So maybe one person can be overly aggressive and lacking patience, and you're going to like this approach. And it could be you, maybe, that you're trying different approaches yourself. So do not lose hope. This is clearly telling you do not lose hope, because this is also pushing you into something else, into something new. I really think, and I know this doesn't sound sexy, I'm not telling you this kind of like knight in the shining armor is happening, but what is happening here is like that you are getting some formation of something that is light and hopeful and moving forward, where you're not going to be feeling constrained with all these different things that I'm seeing over here, right? So now, with having this ability to take a breather, so I really think, and I don't know, like, I mean, it just like came through my head right now. I wanted to tell you, yes, don't forget the breathing, but then what came to my head is like, tell them to go and do yoga, tell them to do yoga. And then I looked in this basically a creativity card, which is the Empress card, which is basically this year number 3. And look at that, we have this light again, right? And this is like, again, we are dealing with this fire and water or some kind of like level. There is like this creative force. So what do we get when we create fire and water? Well, we get steam on the lower end of the spectrum, but you get hot lava on the other side of the spectrum. So also keep in mind that creativity might be a little bit of an issue for you, and it could be that this kind of like new transformation that is happening, it's going to make you wonder in which direction to go. Look, 5s are usually very unstable. So you have a 5, if I can see that, you know, this new thing is going to be different. This is almost like somebody saying, no, you're not going to drive the car. As of tomorrow, you're going to be a rocket driver. You're going, okay, it's interesting, it sounds awesome, but I don't know how to basically ride a rocket. So basically that's going to be a little process of finding your center, finding in which way you want to go. It says financial and material changes over here. It was reversed, which is really good. So I really think it's going to be for the better for you. And you're literally pushed on so many different levels in your direction. Two of Earth can actually talk about juggling things. Could be like maybe 3 partners, and maybe that's why the trees are like in doing that. This could mean that you'll have extra 2 partners and not necessarily just like a different manifestation of the energy. And then the Empress, somebody is perfect, somebody wants to be perfect, right? This is like really talking about everything that I said in the beginning. Please just go stop here and go back to the beginning and listen to my explanation of a year number 3, because here we are talking that, you know, it's really important to start expressing your creativity. She's reversed, so this can really talk about suppressed creative energy. In your case, if your creative energy is suppressed, that really reflects back to your sexuality. You don't feel happy with how you're performing, and you know how important this is to you. Okay, this is private video. I can say that you will really feel that you're failing, especially if, well, not especially if you're a man, but like women as well feel about the same. So this is the basically connection with divine, right? With this kind of like mystical and unknowable. It's sort of like something about joy, something about moving in a completely new direction, something that is like really wanting and needing. Now it says share the love. I really feel that this is really telling me that it's going to be a whole bunch of opportunities. For some reason I keep thinking like 3 and 3 and 2 and 3, that it's going to be a whole bunch of people this year, and it's going to be lots of lies, sweet lies, right? It's going to be juggling. You might be somebody, you might be the one who is juggling, but you might be the one that somebody else juggles, right? Because this came reversed, remember. So in your face, to your face, somebody will be telling you you're perfect and I like what you're contributing. This person here, the Empress, she actually used to be portrayed as the perfect woman, but we live in the strange times. You see, the lotus flower here is still not open. She's reaching out for this light. There is like this stream of water. Remember I was telling you about the fire and water. We see it here and we see it repeated. The lotus is not open. Lotus opens in the light. Another thing, I don't know if you can see it. Can you see how she's connecting with how her veins are connecting with the nature? So anything outside, being out in the forest, being in your garden, touching the soil, literally is going to be the theme of your 2019. And what a lovely, lovely card. I do feel it's going to be really hard for you to reach decision, and each time when you feel that you reach some decision, something else may happen that will make you change your mind. And after a while, that can be very, very exhausting. That can just like continue to create issues in your life. So I'm glad to see that. Can you see this heart? Not only is a circular pattern, but look at this heart is mending. It's not only mending, but is like emanating this amazing thing over here. So this was emergence, and now it is basically formed. And I'm totally seeing that something new is happening, because voila, quarter number 4, we see power. And this is like one of the most powerful cards in this particular deck, next to volcano and next to tsunami. Here is seeing the nature basically showing its amazing force, right? It kind of like electrifies and splits the atmosphere. And it doesn't matter that we live in the 21st century, we are still sometimes feeling very tribal when we see that. When we're inside, you kind of like walk away a few steps away from the window. You really don't want to like hang on it, right? This is like something that clearly sharpens our senses. We are fully woken up. So this is really talking about that force, availability. Look at that. It's coming. It's coming to you. It is available to you. And it's neither good or bad. You have to understand this. This is kind of like something that just like simply is. How will you utilize that? That's important. Now, let's talk about that, how you will utilize it. Because I see here that energy and maybe feeling a little bit behind in what you can accomplish, not accomplish, given that you spend quite a bit of the year back and forth chasing some kind of like wild goose chase sort of a thing, right? And never achieving what you want to, because you're supposed to go inside, not outside. The moment when you get that, like the doors start to open, and then the doors like also make you like, okay, wait a minute, like we were doing this for such a long time, it is really time to go. Let's go, get ready, put your shoes on, let's keep going, right? So this is the only warning that, like, look, you know, you might see yourself as using this power for good, but do not allow yourself to be caught in the duality of good and bad, because I see here that, you see what's the difference? The difference is like feeling inclined to do something that other people want, feeling inclined to do it their way, to please them. Why do you think you're given this power and not them? You're giving this power for a specific reason. You're a Scorpio. There is something that is taken away from you, this high priestess, this connection, this intuitivity. You'll have none. You literally, the fourth quarter, forget about it. The fourth quarter is going to be all about this like huge bundle of energy. It's almost like accessing that divine power and it's kind of like force through it. Now, that force you're going to use for, it says here, triumphant success, but it's reversed. So it's the same card as this one, clarity of belief. But look, something is basically coming out of nowhere, and we see purple on one side, which is highly spiritual, and the white, it is God's energy. So this card is extremely fast, and I really think it's almost like when I saw these two cards together when they were coming out, I was like thinking like King Arthur legend, right, of the sword in the stone. That really told me about release, and that's the Holy Grail, holy sword, that you can kind of grab it. So just make sure, because this is telling me anything can happen. You're going to have immense powers, and power corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So be very careful to caution yourself about your interactions, because I am not so sure that people around you will really jump at this like new powers that you have. This could be even these people who to some extent did manage to control you, this like first two parts, because I don't know why you have such big indecision. Is this the same person and different aspects of this person, or is this representing different aspects of you that you need to marry, you need to work on, you need to kind of like figure out in which direction to go? Because you have like the two twos over here. You have High Priestess, and High Priestess is about good and bad, right? You see the occurrence of the theme. And then we have like these two trees over here. Look at that. This is like this proverbial Two of Cups. It's called friendliness in this particular deck. And this is also a card of friends, relationships, and partnership, and so is this one. So maybe you are trying to go back into your intuitive sense, where you really want to go, who you really want to be with, but this is really telling you that actually it's not going to serve you well. Rather, kind of like cracking the whip, demanding the answers, being, if you wish, right in the face of the people, will be way more effective. This is the card that says two trees can grow next to each other completely. Look, one tree crown doesn't overshadow another, and vice versa. They can coexist peacefully. We are really going back to, and it's really interesting because in a traditional High Priestess card we also see two boulders, right? One is like black, one is like white, and they represent good and evil, right? In this particular card doesn't represent this way, but I cannot but not to think, hey, it's the motive that is appearing, and I'm really looking for repetition when I'm doing these readings. So be very careful about your relationships. There's like something that's going to happen that you need to ask questions. I really think it's going to be plentiful relationships. The next I'm going to look right now in your different aspects of your life, so going to see a little bit deeper about that. I'm also seeing that you'll be going from complete confusion to basically big heart, to kind of like offering your heart to that generosity. Is this going to be abused? Is somebody going to try to do something to you? It is kind of like possible, but little do they know that they're like actually meeting somebody who is coming to this like huge power. So don't use this to destroy them, because you actually do have this power. Rather use that to kind of like elevate yourself to a much higher level, to understand that there is like something that is given to you. Why do you think that power is given to you? It must be a good reason. Last thing I didn't speak about that was this throat chakra card that came through. And I always like put these chakra cards aside. So this is going to be year of communication. It's a number 5 again. It's going to be, it's not a set rule. Generally people want to win. Generally people want to be heard, want to be respected. You know, all this kind of like beautiful tenements of our human rights. And you will need to learn to treat people the way you want to be treated. But also, you will need to learn that if somebody doesn't treat you the way you want to be treated, is going to be something that should be alarming. And that perspective is going to be something you will really need to kind of like figure out. You see, this is also some kind of like communication. It's mind kind of a communication. It's kind of like pulling in together, understanding. So you'll be reaching much higher level of your ability to communicate and your ability to understand. But you also need to figure out at the same time how to basically communicate your own needs, how to communicate how you would want to be treated, how you would want certain things to proceed. It almost looks to me that you're going to be finding lots of challenges, and that's normal. When you're learning something, you're being thrown lots of exercises yourself, and each of them can be different challenge. You have to put it in perspective. So at one point it's just simply going to stop, because you're going to crack the whip. You're going to get what you need to get. So let me shuffle the cards and then just position the houses so we can actually read different houses for you in 2019. Hello Scorpio. Okay, so let's see what we see here. I'll be telling you we have 12 houses. I'll be telling you what they mean. Like each house technically is represented with a different sign. By default, house number 1 is represented with Aries and so on and so forth. The 8th house is Scorpio, so it's a general thing. You have again lots of air. Look at the air. Air, 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 and air. It is really telling me that something is going to play out, that you will really have to be in your head rather than in your heart. And you'll have to kind of figure out in which direction certain things make logical sense versus kind of like going with your gut and going with your feeling, which is like something that is like your modus operandi, and it's normal for you to experience in that way. So let's start. House number 1, you have another 9, and look at here, we have also 9, we have a 10, 3 9s over here. So there is like definitely a shift that is happening. Shift is happening in your spiritual life, because in the house number 12 we are talking about that transcendence, like that eagle and that basically a warrior or a native connecting with each other. Kind of you need to release this. You need to kind of like work with that with logic. So by trying to push it and trying to stretch it, trying to make that kind of like vigorous attempt is not going to get there. Guess what's going to cut it? Just rubbing them on this particular swords, right? The solution has to come from your head, because from our heart we are going to start feeling panicky. So it is very, very important. So house number 1 is basically outward personality. You will be strong, you'll be a warrior, you'll be very passionate, you will be deciding to kind of continue moving in a good direction. So interestingly that you have these 3 9s. The 9s are always talking about good completion. 9s are talking about in which direction you're going. In some respect, 1 9 that is missing when we have this many is more important than the ones that I have. So let me first explain to you the ones that you have. So I told you this is kind of like about that exit, trying to find different approaches to different things. In your case, spiritually, it's going to be really different this year. You will not want to be closed in. You might kind of like try to come up with different solutions of different kind of problems, and you will really continue on the path where you were. This is the house of your personal resources, and it can talk about money and possessions, but also values and skills. You need to realize that you have lots of that in yourself, because that's what Magician is here for as well, to tell you. There's like this Queen of Rods. Remember how I said it's going to be sort of like maybe even some people influencing you over here, but this is going to be about how do I make money, what is important, in which direction do I go, which people I can rely upon, and how do I go about that. In the house number 3, you have the house that really talks about immediate environment and talks about mental activity, can talk about siblings and communication. It was the throat chakra that we had. And you have the 6 of Pentacles. So 6, and you had like 5 of Pentacles over here. So there is like this motion forward. So your relatives will be able to sort of understand you. Remember I said you will be dealing and wheeling this particular year like an air sign. And here it is also about logic. What do you think is happening over here? Yes, this kind of like was assigned to Pentacle Suite. Like he is definitely having this merchant scale, and they're beggars. So he is in a position to give. There is that generosity. So you're learning that you can give if you can, but not unreservedly. You need to figure out that you give enough in order for that to benefit this person, not just in this moment, but in a long term. And this can actually go to your family. Maybe somebody's going to call you for a loan or things like that. And just keep in mind that if this is not something that is comfortable for you, then don't do it. Also, I mean, given the throat chakra is here, it's almost like command of the year. Communication will be very, very important. Then you're having the house number 4, and this is again talking about home and your inner world. This is immediate environment. This is kind of inner world, and could actually mean your home. It could mean your parents. It could mean your roots. It could mean insecurity. Remember how you had that little kind of like creature here emerging? Well, it's a number 1. I see that emergence happening all over again. Look at this. It's infinity. Things can happen. As above, so below. Whenever I see this card, it is telling me you can do whatever you want. However, this card to me very much connects to that leading card. So it's telling you the force is there. You have all the tools. How will you use them is really something you need to ask yourself, as it's going to be very, very important. Then we are coming to the house number 5, and Queen of Swords fell into your romance, children, fun, and creativity. Queen of Swords tends to cut everything that shouldn't be there. Look at the hats they have. They have a plentiful of hats. Some of them are feathery with special stones. Some of them have a special kind of like dinkles and trinkles around. Some of them are just like simply maybe horsetails, but some of them have thorns. She kind of like can come across like a person who doesn't let many people in, especially when she comes reversed. She can become very judgmental. She can become having lots of issues. So this is really telling me that you will not be sitting down and waiting for people to walk over you. You're going to realize your powers. You're going to really have uncanny abilities to analyze things. Yes, sometimes you're going to fall into this, oh my gosh, what do I do? Which kind of like way to go? I don't see these choices. I don't like these choices. Almost like feeling that any choice is going to create some kind of like pain. Especially when it comes to friendships. That's going to be really, really difficult. It looks like that you might lose a friend this year, and that is going to feel really kind of like harsh on you. I do see there'll be few losses, but I also see there'll be quite a few wins, right? In the house of house 6, which really talks about your daily life, and that can be work, that can be different things that you want to do to improve, and health, it is like some proper planning that needs to happen. You again have the motive of the 2s coming up. right? And you also have motive of the threes and motive of the nines. So we are kind of like seeing pattern repetition. So you are getting to the creative stage, but like you're getting to the creative stage through making sure that every single thing and every bracket, every T is crossed and every I is dotted. You're really kind of like being made sure that this happens, because this really talks about what kind of world I want to build for myself. There is like the indecisiveness, and that indecisiveness is going to happen most likely in your work life, even though I really feel there's going to be a woman at your work that is going to be prominently important. It might be somebody in a position of authority. It could be somebody who is calling you to change profession, who will basically simply kind of like turn that button on, and your power is going to come on. You're going to be placed in a position of authority and kind of like being moved forward. It's going to be somebody who is going to have, she's sometimes represented in the different decks like a lawyer. So keep in mind, it's going to be somebody who has this ability to enthusiastically get things through. Now, great news. House number 7 is the house of marriages and other partnerships. I really feel, because the counterbalance on this side is this card, that anything can be expected. Yes, there seems to be a happy ending of something. There is this union, there is like this understanding, there is like this looking eye to eye, but not before you cut these cords. You need to be a new person before this happens. You cannot put cart before the horse, right? Because what's the point? That's why you have all the tens and ones, because it's asking you to shift. And when you do shift, you can create whatever you want. You also have to get rid of things and people, unfortunately, who are basically not there, not willing to be part of your path. Let's put it that way. Their path is they want to create and conquer you. Remember what I said? Like, I mean, win-win versus win-lose-lose. There is like that kind of like debate inside. So it looks like you have people who want what they want, and how many of them are really thinking what is the best for you and what is the best, a bigger picture. And you're going to be the one who is going to put that thinking hat on and seeing what is the best for me, how do I actually move forward. And there is this house number 8 that belongs to Scorpio, so hence it rules sex and death and letting go and regeneration, other people's money and sharing. And you have a lovely, lovely card here, 3 of Pentacles. It talks about improving yourself on every level. It is also a 3. Remember how I said creativity might be iffy, but this is saying, look, creativity doesn't have to be that you create a new Mona Lisa or something monumental, because of course we really all want to be famous. This is really saying, look, daily, something on a daily level, just how you put the plate on, how you arrange your stuff, how you present yourself, that is what's going to really matter. And these small details are going to create such a big result. So this is something you need to focus on, as well as you might have a different job description. You might have a completely different job by the end of the year. This is really talking about other people's money, and this is could be like, I mean, that you're going in some kind of business venture, because this card generally the keywords would be teamwork and would be an expert, because look at him, how meticulously he's creating his work over here, and he really wants to excel. So this is really important to him, and it's going to be important to you. The house number 9, it's talking about expanding horizons. So look, she's blindfolded in this house. She doesn't know what to do. So there is like this trouble and law. And again, it goes into this indecision. Like, feeling blindfolded means, you know, you kind of like don't like directions you're seeing. The options are on the table and you're not buying, kind of a thing. But this card is also saying that actually it's not wise not to pick anything. In fact, it's better to choose something even though it's not exactly what you want, to choose nothing. You know that adage that says, you know, you might not get what you want, but you will get what you need. And maybe that thing that you need might turn into being what you want. So keep that in mind, because rejecting everything, then destiny is going to say, oh, you don't want it? Okay, fine. Just think of this like that somebody's giving you a gift and you say no. And so he's giving you a second gift and you say no. This person is not going to be inclined to give you the third gift. So that's exactly this position. How about saying thank you? And remove the blindfold and just say, look, you know, bless this food that I'm eating. Kind of like enjoy what you're getting, because it's actually going to lead to much greater. That goes toward that number 3 vibration that we have in this particular year. And then you have the outer world, right? Where we had this inner world. It was kind of like creating something, but look, they're actually very, very similar. You have this Queen of Rods, which, yes, it could be a fire sign appearing, but this is also the house that represents this career and status and vocational purpose, taking power, and taking power it is. Queen of Rods, as I said, like in some texts, she's being represented as a lawyer, and she kind of has this commanding presence to make it or break it. And I really feel that it could be a person here who can help your career, or it could be that you are simply going to be this way. You're going to come on a much higher level of expertise and be able to communicate your needs better. You see, like we have these 2 queens, and these 2 queens are very different. This one is very positive, this one not so positive. But Queen of Swords will remove everything that is creating pain. She's kind of like the person who within few seconds can see everything that is going on, and she knows that, hey, you know, I know how the story ends. I'm not going there. Yes, this particular road is the dead end. I'm not going there. And then leads us to this last 2 cards. And this is your house of friendships, and that's what I said. You might lose some friends. Some friends might betray you. You might feel so shocked and so confused about this entire situation. So you will really need your mental faculty to really find yourself walking through the situation. I really feel, because you're going to be more or less having an essence of an air sign than a water sign. We have only one water, so you're going to get your emotional needs met, but they'll be so much more layered for you, because you're shifting in a much kind of like different thing. So you don't know this road, you don't know where you are. They're completely new rules. The rules that you used to work are not going to work anymore. They're like people, you don't want to repeat the same things. You want to be happy, but you'll be also be placed in a different situation, being able to create completely different things, and also be in a situation of generosity and kind of like figuring out how to balance things. This also could mean that you might have a few people around that you're balancing on some kind of like way, shape, or form. So this means that, yes, it could be some rejection. It could be something that is going to really be that you prefer not to do, where you're going to feel that you're doing something that you really have no choice but to do it. It's going to make you feel very bad. I know that is not what you want to hear, but it's going to be something that is literally being born out of necessity. And maybe this is that situation. Maybe this is the thing that you are having a really, really hard time making a decision about and kind of like moving it forward. All right, my dear Scorpio, let's check Lenormand. Lenormand is going to be rather quick, but I really want to put all of that in a possible timeline to see what might be evolving when, and give you that better perspective. So let me try to do that. Okay, so guys, in Lenormand there are 2 main significators. There is the lady over here, and there is the gentleman. Either of them can be you, or both of them can be you. So keep that in mind as I'm giving this explanation. For some of you, health is extremely important. There has been something that you have been going that could be very traumatic. You have both the coffin and the cross and the clouds. So now to put this other kind of layers that we were looking at in perspective, you have been actually already for a while going through some kind of confusion. We were trying to remove these clouds, and maybe something didn't really end well, and that's why you're trying to find certain key, and you're really, really looking for your happiness. House of the man has the tree, and for some of you it has been a healthy growth. You were going in the direction of could be operations. I see the kite over here. It could be reviving past loves over here. It is really important also because the gentleman is falling in the house of the garden, and garden is above. So it's going to be lots of dating for some of you. It's almost like giving you this newfound ability to move forward. For some of you, it might be even stopping certain things that are not working. So yes, for some of you it could actually mean breakups and divorce, but this is like something that you already know. This is not going to be something that is going to start with new people, because you're building a completely new you, and I can see this mountain, the challenge that needs to be overcome, and then in order to move to the best and much better things for you. So what I see here is like certain things from the past keep resurfacing, keeps working. Maybe you have somebody who you kind of like set aside. Maybe you haven't reached this decision. Maybe certain things didn't make sense. Maybe it was simply that one of these end of karma accomplished, we need to move forward. But like for some of you, that love is just going to start to blossom. Interestingly, the heart is in the house of the fish, and the fish just generally, as you can see, it swirls around and always reminds me of the dating site Plenty of Fish. Kind of a thing that maybe at this stage there's like somebody that kind of like came on your hook, and that somebody seems to be healthy thing in a relationship. But do not rest too much, because look, that somebody might be having a child, or somebody comes as a package deal, and this somebody is coming here as the snake card. And the snake card doesn't necessarily have a negative connotation, it has neutral connotation. It depends on the surrounding cards, but I do have a negative card and I have another neutral card. So I would just really watch here, because lots of things will depend on how things are said, because the lilies is definitely also card, and this is the house of the lilies. It's something that comes from the past. It may be something from the past. Maybe you had a child, maybe your ex, maybe some monetary obligations are coming through it. It could be talking about a person who is a salt and pepper or gray haired or even maybe bald. That is going to be really important over here. Now, if you really look, these two significators are also meeting in this card of lilies. They are meeting in the card of the mountain, the crossroads, and in the birds. So the mountain is generally a hard card to move. It's the mountain, right? The mountain you have to go around, and I can see that it's going to be a period of so much vigor. So this is really out of the gate, and then all of a sudden things are going to start happening. You'll be controlled. You'll be feeling that somebody really doesn't want to do things. Remember how I said lies, sweet little lies? Somebody maybe presented themselves in a completely way that you said, oh my gosh, this is amazing, and then you realize they're everything but, right? The lilies can also talk about therapy and your tarot sessions and meeting with doctors, right? The health issue here. As I said, I could see operations for some of you starting in the very beginning of the year, especially for the women Scorpios over here. Male Scorpios, if you identify as a male also, you literally are going to start dating big times. It's going to be lots of opportunities and going to be healthy options that you have. But somebody is going to throw the wrench in all of that, and I really think that's the beginning of that indecision that we have been seeing all along and everywhere. Now, the second significator doesn't tell us much, but again, I see the work cards being on the both sides over here. So the moon is like the card, and the stars is here, this throat chakra. It's like the card of communication. It is falling in the house of the moon, which kind of talks about that work and honor and fame. And the stork, when it comes to work, it talks about possibly moving, getting a different position. And I do have to tell you that I see some of you, for some of you, I do see layoffs. For some of you, I do see it's going to be reshuffle at work. But I also see that there's going to be somebody, you have this bear, somebody you already know, who's going to be very protective, who might actually lend you a hand. But it's going to be very tricky to find this person, and you again cannot go with your gut feeling here, because that person is going to be one of those one can be very helpful, one can be very hurtful. So you be very careful, because you see the house is falling in the house of the crossroads, right? And it is going in a new direction. You might be literally moving. You might be moving your position. You see, the ship can indicate it can be even something, you know, long distance. You might be working, you know, telecommuting, kind of like working from home. I see these birds. It could be something going in the unknown, because you have the book is in the house of the heart, and the ring is in the house of the stars. So what does that mean? There's like something unknown when it comes to this like heart things, but again we have like this healing thing which connects with the tree, and it connects with the rider, right? And the rider is in a house of the dog, so it's kind of like talking about loyalty. You're already thinking about it, like what is important to me, what do I want to be loyal to. So you're really getting into this, what do I really want to create, and that will be that magician, in which direction do I really move forward. The ring in the house of the stars, it's really talking about commitment. But in this particular case, it's really talking the commitment. And mind you, you did have in your 7th house the 10 of cups. It's that kind of like marriage coming through. But in particular in Lenormand, I see a new commitment, a new contract about work. And it's going to be something that you're going to venture into that you do not know how it's going to result financially. It's kind of like one of those, remember what we seen the 3 of Pentacles? It was kind of building some expertise, going some kind of direction, and kind of like wondering how to go about it. So be very logical, see what people do. You know what they say, give them a rope and see what they do with that, right? So you are not going to process people through some kind of emotional x-ray. You literally will watch what they say and what they do. That's going to be telling you everything, and it's relatively easy because it looks like you have been already going through that prism already for a while. It was maybe some kind of communication that has been maybe faded, because the cross to me is a fade, or could have been some kind of ending, could be like, it could be a couple of endings that I see over here, or simply confusion. Oh my gosh, what do I do? Where is this key, right? Kind of like knocking on different doors, trying different things. I see here a passion, and I also see debate between the passion. Is it passion, or is kind of like settling down? What do I do? Literally, January, I think it's not going to be that confusing as it looked like in your quarterly. It's going to be very enjoyable for some of you. Others of you are going to be making really big plans. Some of you will be really having a romance blossoming, and here's like, remember how I saw the 3 people? It could be something like this happening, or 3 or even 4 people. It could be just like so much. Then right after that, there's like something that's going to happen that can cause some of you to go into that isolation, and isolation not really where you really want to be, right? So I have the mountain right next to the house, I have the sky next to the house, and it is something from the past. You kind of like on some level you had the radar, you kind of like did pick up on it. And the stork and the mountain really talks about the slow progress of something. So whether or not it's going to be some moving, maybe you're going to be thrown at, oh, you can move, and you're going to go, well, wait a minute, I'm not so sure if I really want to. It looks like that you had some kind of like new beginnings a couple of months ago, or something like that, maybe even the beginning of December. Something like that was going in a new direction where it felt all sunny and shiny, and it almost literally like in a very scorpionic way. The coffin card, which kind of here belongs to you, rose from ashes and gave you this like new key, right? Kind of like new possibility of going in a new direction. So I do see possibility of travel, but I also see that maybe sometimes you'll plan travel and things might get canceled or delayed. Then you'll be making some investments, and you again have to logically understand if there is like something that is not resulting in kind of like direction where you want to go, you need to stop, because this is like why the sky is, and sky is falling in the woman's house. And really, even though Sky can talk about cutting many things, especially here with the bear, it would talk about some kind of like finances or something that you maybe had. Oh, I have it in my pocket, oh, it's done, I'm going to do it, everything works out. All of a sudden it's going to look very, very different, and your perspective is going to be very different. I did tell you, by the end of the year you're going to be completely different people, and this is really amazing on many levels, more levels than one. I would say that it's going to be very important, and it goes back to the throat chakra. Communication, 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 communication. Everything is kind of clustering here, where also is like where we have these houses of communication and heart and work. So be very careful. You'll have to really, I would not say watch what you say, because no, you really have to change your approach, and maybe that's why you have the ship over here. I think to some extent you have been already working on it, but the rider really goes slow on a horse. This is much faster. The ship is equivalent what they had it back then with us having planes, kind of like going much farther, going in a new direction. So keep in mind that some of your salary, that you might have some kind of expenses, maybe you're going to have stuff at home that you need to kind of pay for, that you need to work on. So it's going to be some talk about, in the first 4 or 5 months, about your job, about your income. This is also about being very protective. Maybe somebody's being overprotective, maybe you are being overly protective of some kind of like sort. And then also how the bear and mice together, so that actually can mean some check in the mail. So something doesn't arrive, something else comes forward, because I did see, and this can be seen as, again, some other woman actually offering you help, but somebody might be offering you help out of their own, I guess, agenda. So keep in mind that that's kind of like as well, who is doing what, and don't really overly advertise everything that is going in your head. Sort of like, even though you will not have such highlighted intuitive capabilities, so it's going to be fish out of water, and you're leaving the fish sort of like behind over here, but you see you're going from the fish to birds. So keep that in mind. It's that air element that keeps showing up, and you have the stars. Remember, it came twice, that hope card and the star card, and we're having this again. So maybe for you, work and love could be interlaced. Not necessarily that you are meeting the person from work, but more than it's going to be very prominent. And maybe the juggle that I was seeing is going to refer to that. That is going to be, how do you address all these things? And is my monitor going to calm down? Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Show here, show here. Well, hopefully it will. So Scorpio, this is getting me to basically this end where I want to draw one more card, and from all the cards I want this to really mean what is the one intense message you need to focus to in order to remember it. Even though I do really recommend that you come here many times, that you see, that you pick up different messages. Like, these messages are general messages, but they mean something particular to you. What kind of mountain do you have for you? What is happening in your own house? What kind of like stuff you need to deal with this, right? It's going to be very important to look at that way. So what message is really important for Scorpios to understand in 2019? And you got the card Intention reversed. And I love owls, and I love dandelions, right? So let's see, this is reversed. It's like whole field of dandelions, and look at the mountains in the background. It's also number 22, which is a master number. So let me read this for you. And it says this: are you clear about your intentions, or are you in a foggy state of denial about your true motives and or ambitions? This is the time to step back and gain perspective and clarity about your direction. Check your motives and ask if they are sincere. Are you pursuing some goal blindly without asking its cost? Good intentions are being misinterpreted. Now is a time of self-evaluation and self-nurturing. You will benefit greatly if you take time out to regroup. and then that message kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. And it's going to be too much of a good thing for you guys, and it's going to be really interesting, because maybe at some point you're going to feel, wait a minute, none of this is what I want. Remember when I said you have to make a choice? So why don't you make a temporary choice with having in mind that you can always change your mind and you can pick something else. So my dear Scorpio, I really hope this helps, and of course I really hope, you know, at some point you're going to get your personal readings. This annual forecast are able to be done on a personal level, equally intense. So let me know. You know my email, you know where to find me, and I really wish you happy new 2019. It's going to be very interesting for you. It's going to be lots of like coming balls up in the air, lots of motion. So buckle up, my dear Scorpio, and you know that I love you. And until the next year, all the best.